Hey, what's going on, fam? So, just another quick video. Today, I want to talk about Nipsey Hussle and the conspiracy theories around his death versus the belief that he, was just killed on some street business or some regular psycho hood business. And obviously, I made the last video about Nipsey just referring to the Sambos using his death as a tool to promote Samboism, to promote coonism, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, that was something that I wanted to address first, but now I want to go ahead and address some of the conspiracy theories around his death. So part of the reason why I'm inspired to make this video is I want to shout out to my brother Dark Black One. He's made a video. His name is Dark Black One on Twitter and on YouTube. I'm gonna put the link to his YouTube channel and his the video that I'm responding to in particular in the description box. So before I even start to get into the video, I want to say go check out his channel. It's a new channel, so that's why it doesn't have a lot of subscribers or views. But go give him a chance. I know people sometimes they'll look, even my channel, they'll look at the subscribers and views and decide that I'm not worth listening to because of my level of subscribers or views. And with him, he has even less subscribers and views than me, so it'll probably be even more so with him. But I just want to say, anybody who's listening to my channel, give him a chance. You never know how popular his channels might grow, and if it does get popular, hey, you can say that you were one of the first people, you were riding with him from day one. But anyway, I digress. So the reason why I'm wanting to respond to his video is because me and him had a brief conversation about it on Twitter, but I've been seeing him tweet a lot, and he finally made a video about it. He's very much against the possibility of any sort of conspiracy being behind the death of Nipsey. And I want to make this video to respond to some of his points. And I want to say, first of all, before I even get into the points, is that I don't know for sure. I think the only people that know for sure is Nipsey, Eric Holder, if it was a conspiracy, the people who are behind Mr. Holder, and anyone who was there who witnessed the entire event. And what I mean by there and witnessed the entire event, even the getaway driver, she was obviously witnessed the event. The getaway driver for Mr. Eric Holder, she obviously witnessed the event, but even she may not have fully known what was going on, because depending on what the conversation was before she drove him over there, she may or may not know all the details about why he did this, what the motivation was. She may not even have known that he was going to go kill Nipsey. So I want to be honest, or be open about and upfront about all of those factors. None of us really know, and that's what one of the main things my brother Dark Black One was saying, is that nobody really knows for sure. And that's true. Like, even if you were there at the store, like let's say if you were inside the store when Nipsey got shot, all you may have seen is gunshots ring out. You may not have known what happened, but hey, you may have, if you knew the conversation, if you knew the relationship between Eric Holder and Nipsey, you may know what happened, but you may not know what happened also. That's what I'm saying. You could have been standing right there and still not know what happened if you don't know the background. So, if the people who were there may not know what happened, it's damn sure people who were not there don't really know what happened. So I want to give my brother credit for that, because that's what was one of his main points, is that we don't really know. And that's true, we don't. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that we can't look at the facts and kind of deduce what happened. I mean, you don't have to be somewhere to deduce what happened. Hell, you didn't have to be standing beside Martin Luther King when he got shot to look at the facts and kind of deduce what possibly happened. So, and it's about anybody else or any other major event. You didn't have to be in the Twin Towers. You didn't have to be in downtown New York City to know what happened. All right. So I'm just saying that those are just examples. Obviously, it's not the same thing as Nipsey's situation, but if it's a conspiracy, it's definitely similar to what happened to a Martin Luther King or a Fred Hampton or a Malcolm X. But anyway, this video I'm going to be addressing some of the points he made, and I want to, and just in case it's not already obvious, I'm more so leaning towards it being the possibility of a conspiracy, even though I know the street life is real, and it does not necessarily have to be a conspiracy. It could have just been street life that got Nipsey. All right, and Nipsey necessarily didn't have to be living a street life, but the fact that he was in the street, in the hood, where people who do live street life reside, he could have been a casualty of that, just like any of us could be. But I want to go ahead and address some of his points. So the first point I want to address is the gentrification point. So I don't know if this point was particularly in response to me or not, or it's just in general, but he and I had a conversation about this, and this is one of the conspiracy points that I more so believe. For those of you who do or who may or may not know, gentrification is happening all over the country. In every major city in America, gentrification is occurring. So these white people are moving into historically black areas, impoverished black areas, buying up the properties, renovating the properties, raising the property values, raising the cost of living, and essentially driving black people out because they can't afford to live there anymore. And then they also, when they're starting to gentrify an area, they bring in a heavy police presence, and that's to kind of further put pressure on the black people to find more black people to lock up, and that's another way to get them up out of there. If you're not going to drive them up out of there with raising the cost of living, you're going to drive them up out of there by putting false charges on them, by putting a heavy police presence in there to create a hostile environment that makes it untenable for them to live there anymore, along with the rising costs and other things. And this is happening all over America. And Nipsey was buying up properties and owned businesses in LA, where they were in an area that they were trying to gentrify. And my brother Dark Black One, his counter to that was that there's a difference between residential and commercial gentrification, and I respect that. I believe that's true. Obviously, there's possibly a difference between residential and commercial gentrification. But what I want to say is the reason why I have a problem with this point. Let me back up a little bit. So I want to say with the gentrification point, one of my points was that the white supremacists don't like being subverted. They don't like being handicapped. They don't like being kneecapped. They don't like being cut off at the pass on their plans, especially by a black person. They might tolerate it if it was a white person, and I highly doubt that, because white supremacy will put another white person in the ground in order to sustain white supremacy. But they damn sure don't like a black person interfering with their plans. So that was my point, and that Nipsey's death was too convenient for the gentrifying white supremacists, or the gentrifying suspected white supremacists. And his point was that it's the difference between commercial and residential gentrification. And he was saying Nipsey had businesses in the area, and he did own a few properties, residential properties, but the properties weren't in an area that's prime to the white supremacists, because the white supremacists are actually trying to gentrify Inglewood and the areas near the stadium, the new stadium that the Rams are playing in. The Rams and the Chargers, I believe, but at least the Rams, I'm not sure, are playing in. And he was saying that the area that Nipsey was buying property in is not really an area that the white supremacists are trying to gentrify. And my counter to that is that doesn't really make sense to me, because me being in a gentrified city, the white supremacists, they don't focus on one black area and only gentrify that area. Now, I will say an example for Atlanta, in the city I live, when they were building the new Falcon Stadium, that's an area that they're also gentrifying. And when they started to gentrify Atlanta, that's the area that they started in, the inner city, the heart of the city, where the stadium was being built. But before it was even being built, because they were ramping up to that, so they had already started to gentrify that area a few years before. But the problem is, and this is what I know, at least with Atlanta, is the white supremacists don't stop in one area. They don't gentrify just the inner city and that's it. For example, in Atlanta, the west side of Atlanta is being gentrified. The inner city, downtown, is being gentrified, which downtown is considered to be on the west side. But still, they're gentrifying the west side, the whole west side, like further west of downtown, not just downtown Atlanta. They're also gentrifying the east side, which the downtown is not considered part of the east side. They're also gentrifying the east side. The east side is being heavily gentrified. The only place that's not really being heavily gentrified yet is the South Side, but that's coming. That's already begun. Like, there are signs in Atlanta, in South Atlanta, talking about the plans to gentrify. There's a sign talking about these people don't want black people in Hateville, which is a southern part of Atlanta. There's a sign down there. You can drive by the sign, and it's down there. There's somebody, probably a black person, which I want to give them props, pay for a small billboard. It's not a big, tall billboard that you can see from the highway or see from a distance. It's a small billboard, a very short billboard that's almost like the height of a car. So you have to like be driving in the local area, and it's on a back road. It's like not even on a major traffic road. It's like on a back road. So that's just me pointing to the fact that it's coming. So for him to say that they're not really trying to gentrify the area that Nipsey's in, that doesn't make sense to me, because that may be true for now, but trust me, it's coming. They are going to gentrify that area. That's not to me, that's not really up for debate. And I know I don't live in LA, but like I said, you don't have to be in an area or be from an area to look at the facts of something and wonder about it. So that's one point, is that with the residential thing, that doesn't really fly with me, honestly, because the white supremacists don't stop in one area and only gentrify that area. They want to gentrify the whole area. And then he says about commercial gentrification, that there are a lot of black businesses in the area where Nipsey was. It's one of the most heavily black business populated, or whatever you want to use the word. It has the most black businesses of any area in LA. That's what he said, right? And he said if they were trying to gentrify that area, why wouldn't they go after all the other business owners who own businesses in the area? And I want to say this. Number one, black ownership overall is at 2%, which is far less than any other race. So I don't care, or not. Nah, I don't care, but it doesn't matter how many black businesses are in that area. When you look at the statistics of black businesses overall, it's just not that many. So even if that area has more black businesses than most areas in LA, it's still not that, to me, it still can't be that much of significance. Like, it still doesn't mean that the white supremacists can't buy up every other business in the area, right? Because even in Atlanta, there are a lot of black businesses on the west side. That's the most heavily populated black-owned business area in Atlanta, is on the west side. But the white supremacists are still gentrifying the area. There's a Soul Vegetarian, which is a Hebrew Israelite-owned business, black Hebrew Israelite-owned business. They're building a big-ass high-rise condo right beside Soul Vegetarian, right behind Soul Vegetarian. So it doesn't matter that there's black businesses in the area. They'll just build businesses around it, and they'll still gentrify the area. Hell, they might even still patronize those businesses, but they're still going to buy all the businesses around it and buy all the properties around it, and the area will be over-gentrified. They don't mind if one or two Negroes still own their businesses up in there. It's not a threat, all right? Especially not when they can own everywhere else but maybe that business. It's not really a threat. And then they'll probably just wait, hey, this Negro will probably go out of business anyway, because black businesses have the highest failure rate, of any race of businesses. So they're probably like, you know what, we're just gonna wait till this Negro's business falls apart, and then we'll take it over then. So to me, that's also not really a concern. Then he says, why aren't they going after these people? So even if it was really a concern, the amount of black businesses in the area, Nipsey was the most prominent of these people. Nipsey was the most well-known of these people. So it's taking out Nipsey could remove the only real threat, because Nipsey's mentality could have been contagious, and maybe they were afraid that Nipsey was going to cause either the businesses or the residences, either by himself or other people that will either join him or just be inspired by him and do it on their own, to continue to buy up properties in that area. And they could have been afraid that the influence of Nipsey was more so the problem than the fact that he was owning the business. The influence and the fact that he could spread his mentality because of his profile, and because he was well known, and especially because he was especially well known in the area. Nipsey had a potential to inspire other people, or to even just link up with other people and buy up more properties and buy up more businesses to the point where it did become a problem for the white supremacists. And maybe moving Nipsey out the box removed that threat. So that's the other thing I wanted to address, is that, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be that they have to go after everyone else in order to be wanting to go after Nipsey. It could be Nipsey's profile. The next thing I want to address is him saying that, you know, why would the white supremacists be behind this? Why would the police or anyone be behind this if it was going to start a gang war? And my thing is that that's perfect, because look, when do we know cops to really have interest in stopping gang violence and violence in the inner cities? We know all over America the police presence is heavy in the inner cities, whether they're trying to gentrify the area or not. Before gentrification became a big thing, like it is right now, I mean, it's always been a thing, but it's like becoming a real big thing now. Like white supremacists and suspected white supremacists are starting to move back into the cities again, right? And this is something that started to more so happen again over the last 10 to 5 years, really heavy, right? So we know, but anyway, backtracking a little bit back to what I was saying. We know that even before gentrification, they were in the cities, but they were not really reducing crime like that. They were not really lowering crime like that. No matter how much they had been in the cities, in the inner city areas, in the hoods, in the projects, they had not really been having an impact on crime like that. No matter how much they were there, they were not lowering the crime rates in these areas. So them being in the city, or not being in the city, them trying to say that their goal is to lower crime, that doesn't really fly, because it doesn't seem to make sense as far as their history of not really reducing crime, although they have heavy presence in the area, of, you know, encouraging the socioeconomic conditions. This is not really the police, but more so the government entities, the politicians, who and the white supremacists of industry who remove all the finances and all the socioeconomic resources out of an area, so that the area raises, so that the crime rate goes up. I mean, any sociologist worth their salt will tell you that in areas of high poverty, crime goes up. And this is of any race, you know, Irish, etc., had crime when they were in poor areas. When white Irish people were in the ghettos, they had gangs left and right. You know, when Hispanics are in the ghetto, they have gangs. So this is not something that's exclusive to black people. Any race that you put in a poverty situation, you're going to breed crime. Especially in America, you're going to breed crime. It's just plain and simple. And we know that anybody who has an understanding of the system of white supremacy, know that the white supremacists do this intentionally to black areas to drive up crime. So if they're doing things intentionally to drive up the crime, why would they try to reduce the crime? Why would it be an incentive for them to stop crime? Right? So him saying that, again, that's another thing that I disagree with, because it doesn't add up, because we don't see any history of them trying to reduce crime. And then he says, well, no, the LAPD is coming out with press releases saying that they're lowering crime. Yes, they do that in Atlanta too now, in the inner cities, because they're trying to gentrify the areas. So they're trying to tell white people, hey, we're getting these Negroes up out of here. We're getting them in jail. We're locking them up. We're moving all these hood Negroes up out of here so y'all can come on in. That's what that is. That's what the subliminal messaging behind that we're reducing crime is coming from. Is that, hey, we are getting these Negroes up out of here, so you don't have to be afraid. You can move in here with your resources, and you don't have to worry about one of these Negroes robbing you, because we're getting them about the paint. So that's my response to him saying, what about the fact that the police are there? Why would they want to start a gang war, potentially by enlisting this gang member to kill Nipsey, when they're trying to reduce crime in the area? And my thing is that they're not really trying to reduce crime. They're just trying to get the Negroes up out of there. And then starting a gang war could further play into that, because hey, now there's a big gang war going on. So now they have justification to make the block hot. Now they can be in the neighborhood heavy, moving Negroes up out there at an even quicker rate than they were before because of this incident. So those two things, they actually play into the conspiracy theory, in my opinion. They don't work against it. So then the other thing was that he wanted to address was the fact that this dude is an informant. And this is somewhat speculation, even though from what I'm hearing from people who live in LA, and just to be honest, in particular, the person I'm hearing this from is Tariq Nasheed. He lives in LA, and he's saying he knows some of the street people in LA, and he's saying that he's heard directly that from the connections that he has that this dude is an informant. And my brother's point about the dude being an informant was, what benefit is it for this dude to go kill Nipsey? What is it in it for him if he's an informant? Like, if he kills Nipsey, he's going to go to prison. He's going to be under threat of death from the gang members in prison. He's going to be under threat of heavy violence from the people in prison. And my thing is no, he's not, if he's going to be protected. This dude, Eric Holder, is someone who's been to prison before. And dudes who've been to prison, they know that witnesses and snitches get protection when they go to prison, especially if they're a known snitch or an informant. They get protection. They get solitary confinement, especially if they're a high-profile snitch or a high-profile informant. And he's probably seen this before. And lo and behold, what happened to Mr. Eric Holder once he went to prison? He got put in solitary confinement, and he's under protection. All right? And this happens. And the white supremacists or the police officers, of course, they don't have to necessarily confess to a conspiracy, because they do that for every informant. They do that for every snitch. They put them in protection. They do that for every celebrity or high profile, whatever, right? They put them in protection if they know that they're in danger. So that's not necessarily something that they would only do for Mr. Eric Holder. So they can just hide behind that and say this is normal police practice for a high profile case. People are upset. People think he did it, so we're going to put him in protection, right? So that's normal. And Mr. Eric Holder probably knew that from being a person who's been to prison before. So that's number one. It's okay for him to go to prison if he knows he's going to be protected. Number two, if he gets off, of course he would do it if they gave him assurances, hey, dude, you're going to have to do a little bit. You're going to have to be in prison while we wait on you to go to trial. We're going to have to put on the show. We can't reveal that we behind this. So, we're going to have to, you're going to have to do some time, but you're going to get off eventually. Trust us, we got you. And then obviously the alternative is this dude is a rumored hitman. This dude is a rumored hitter. Like, that's what he did. He did hits. He's done a lot of killings, right? And that's the thing that, like a Tariq was saying, was suspect about him, is that this dude has killed people before, and he's all out of jail, not in prison, and that's suspect. And they could have said, hey, look, dude, we got XYZ murder cases on you, so you cannot do this and go to prison for murder anyway, or you can kill somebody else and get off of all the cases you've done before, and get off the Nipsey case. So to me, that's my response to my brothers, and talking about what's the incentive for him doing this, is that if he had assurances that he would not only be protected in prison, but he would also get off and get his other murder cases or rumored murder cases dismissed, of course he would do it. He's already done it. He's already killed people for money, or so he's alleged to have done. I don't know that that's true for sure, but so he's alleged to have already killed people on some hits or on some money. So why wouldn't he do it again to get off of those cases? Why wouldn't he do it again if that was the bargain? And then the last thing I want to address, the point that my brother made is, the Christopher Darden situation. And he was saying that Mr. Christopher Darden, he may need because he knows the counter already. He's heard some of the counters to it, that this dude doesn't need publicity. Why is he representing this dude who shouldn't be able to afford him? And he was saying, hey, maybe the dude from his criminal activities, maybe he could afford Mr. Darden, or maybe Mr. Darden is taking on this case for publicity not because he's not known, but because he's not known as a defense attorney, because Mr. Darden is known as a prosecutor of the O.J. Simpson case. Even though he's retired from prosecution and he's now in a private practice and he's a defense attorney, you know, people can say, well, he's not known, and my brother Dark Black One was saying he's not known for being a defense attorney, so he could be doing this to raise his profile as a defense attorney. And he was saying that, hey, the dude has nothing to lose because, hey, if he loses the case with Eric Holder, he wasn't expected to win in the first place. But if he wins, now he has, you know, now he can attract a bunch of other high-profile clients. And my response to that is this. I don't believe that Mr. Darden needs the publicity. That's number one. Number two, if he's doing this pro bono, that a dude of Mr. Darden's profile does not do a case like this pro bono unless they pretty much know that they can win. Like, it, to me, in my experience, they don't do this unless they pretty much know that they can win the case. And I say in my experience, not that I've experienced it directly, but from what I've seen. They don't take on these kind of cases unless they know there's a very good chance of them winning or them getting a payout. That's usually what it is. They don't take on these cases like Michael Avenatti, all these people, the R. Kelly people that he's representing, the Stormy Daniels that he was representing. These people didn't necessarily have to pay him. He knew that the likelihood of him getting some sort of cut or some sort of publicity or getting his, you know, getting a win in one way or another was high. That's why he took on the cases. And I'm saying that to say that this dude should not be able to afford Christopher Darden. I don't care if he has some street money. The amount of money that it takes to get a dude like Christopher Darden is on another level. Like, it's usually bigger than, like, you got to have kingpin money. You can't just be no street dude, no dude who sells dope and may have some money from a couple of hits back in the day, like that you've probably squandered by now. Like, dudes with that type of money can't afford a Christopher Darden. And my thing is the reason why I believe that Christopher Darden is taking on this case because he has a good chance of winning. And the winning, because the thing is that when you take on a high profile case like this and you win, because you can take on all the high profile cases all you want. If you're losing all the time, it's not really going to raise your profile. Even Benjamin Crump, the attorney that's for all these victims of police brutality, yes, he lost all the cases as far as, first of all, he wasn't a defense attorney or a prosecuting attorney. That's number one. So that's one of the escapes or the outs that Benjamin Crump has as far as not really winning the cases. He was not a defense nor a prosecutor in these police brutality cases. He was not a defense nor a prosecutor of George Zimmerman or any of these other cases he's taken on. Right? He's a lawyer for the civil suits that these families bring in. And he comes through on the civil suits. Right? Because those were almost pretty much guaranteed to happen anyway. But he gets to stand in front of the family and stand with the family and pretend to be this pro-black lawyer who's helping out the family, even though he does nothing for them. He secures no convictions for them. He just gets them paid. He gets them broken off, and then he gets his cut too, and he gets the publicity. And now Benjamin Crump has plenty of practices here in Atlanta after he's done all of that, you know, all of these representing the families of victims of police brutality, right, or of vigilantes. So anyway, back to Mr. I done forgot his name. Oh, Darden. Back to Attorney Darden. So again, I was pointing out these other high-profile lawyers to point out that they usually don't take on these cases unless they're going to get a win, right? They don't just take on the cases to take an L. Like, Benjamin Crump wouldn't take on them cases if the families wasn't going to get broke off. Like, he pretty much went into that knowing that the families was going to get broke off, right? And then he's going to say, I'm the one who got them broke off, even though he didn't really get them broke off because they were going to get broke off anyway. He comes in and says, I'm going to ensure that you get broke off, or I'm going to maximize the payment that you're going to get from the city or from the police department or from both. So my thing is, I don't think Darden is taking this case unless he knows that the dude's going to get off on an insanity defense. Because there's this whole, and this is where I want to caution my brother Dark Black One, because he even kind of, you know, repeated that mentality, that mental illness thing. Look, this dude does not have mental illness, or does not have. This dude should not be able to get off on an insanity plea, because anybody who knows a little bit about law knows that an insanity plea has one of the highest burden of proofs of any sort of plea in the court of law. Like it almost has a higher burden of proof than pleading innocent. Pleading insanity has a extremely high burden of proof, and the reason why it has an extremely high burden of proof is because most of the people who try to use it, they have to be able to show that it was a completely spontaneous act. When you plead insanity, you have to show that your action was completely spontaneous, meaning that you cannot show any premeditation, any planning of this murder whatsoever. It has to be something where somebody upset you, somebody triggered you, and you just killed them on the spot. Like, there has to be zero premeditation. And the reason why this dude should not be able to, because he could possibly get off on mental illness, but the reason why this dude should not be able to get off on mental illness, because I don't care if he's claimed to have a history of schizophrenia, psychotic episodes, bipolar disorder, whatever it is. The fact that and this is reported by many accounts, the fact that he had a conversation with Nipsey, whatever went down, he had to leave, go get a gun, and come back with a getaway driver. That alone shows premeditation. In any other case that you look at, where they show even the slightest bit of premeditation, they can't get off on insanity. Because when you show premeditation, you show that you had to think this act through. You thought this through and you still proceeded with it. So that's why I'm saying that the insanity plea should not apply to Eric Holder. He immediately eliminated any possibility of him getting off on insanity when he left and came back. That immediately ended his possibility of getting off on an insanity plea. Now, if they had gotten into an argument, him and Nipsey, Eric Holder and Nipsey, and he just shot Nipsey on the spot, yes, the door's open for an insanity plea. But the fact that he left and came back, that should have crushed the insanity plea. And this is where I want to wrap up the video. Is that even though, yes, like I said at the beginning of the video, we don't know for sure. I don't know. Dark Black One, my brother Dark Black One, said he doesn't know. Most of the people speculating don't know. But if Darden gets off on insanity, I mean, not if Darden, but if Darden gets Eric Holder off on insanity, with the fact that him getting off on insanity should be extremely unlikely, to me that shows that it was a conspiracy right there. And I want to caution my brother Dark Black One, do not co-sign that mental health deal. And this is not only for my brother Dark Black One, but for anybody else who's listening to this video, because obviously I'm putting it on my channel, so I want all my subscribers to listen to this video, not just my brother Dark Black One. Any black person, do not co-sign that mental health BS. It is total BS. I don't care if it's somewhat true that he's had a history of mental health issues, which I doubt it. I don't believe it. But if it's somewhat true, it still doesn't apply to this case, because he showed premeditation by leaving and coming back. And that's all police officers, that's all prosecutors need to show premeditation. They don't have to show you plotting this for a year and a half. They don't have to show you plotting this for 10 years. You could have plotted it for 5 minutes. If they can show premeditation for 5 minutes, insanity's out the window. And we know with the racist court system, insanity should damn sure be out the window. And if this dude had not killed a high profile person, and if this was some regular street business, they would have crushed that insanity defense. They would have said, nigga, get your ass in jail. Shut the hell up about no damn insanity. Nigga, you ain't insane. You left and came back. You premeditated that. You had the mental faculties to plot that murder. And that's all they use to show insanity. Because insanity, you have to show that you didn't have the mental faculties to intend on doing this. But the fact that you left and came back, that alone shows you had the mental faculties to intend to do this and to plan on doing this. Because the insanity plea is I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't realize what I was doing because of my psychotic break. But when you leave and come back, that immediately shows that you knew what you were doing. So anyway, like I said, we don't know. And hopefully this dude does get a prison sentence. Hopefully this dude does stay in prison. But I just want to say to my brother, Dark Black One, and any other black people, and this is why I wanted to close the video on this last point, do not co-sign that mental health defense. Because if this dude gets off on mental health, I'm going to go from saying I'm not sure, but it seems like a conspiracy, to saying I know that this was a conspiracy. If this dude gets off on insanity, I know that this was a conspiracy. But anyway, that's the end of the video. Like, share, subscribe, fam. Rest in peace, Nipsey. Rest in power. You will be missed, brother. Anyway, peace.